chair of the Intergovernmental Commission on Economic, Scientific, and Economic Cooperation. It's going to be the 8th session of the Commission. The ministers will consider the current state and prospects of the progressive development of bilateral relations. They will also discuss relevant issues of global and regional agendas of mutual interests with emphasis on the Middle East, Northern Africa and Sahara-Sahel region. We note regular and constructive nature of the Russian-Moroccan political dialogue. We have convergent or similar approaches on many key issues. On October 22nd, Russian Minister Sergei Lavrov is going to hold talks with the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan. He's going to visit Moscow with his first official visit. After he has come back to his post, the ministers will discuss comprehensive trade, economic, cultural, and humanitarian cooperation, including in the context of the upcoming visit of the Kazakhstan president to the Russian Federation. They will also focus our cooperation within integration systems, within the CIS and other mechanisms. They will compare notes on the global and regional agendas. They will also share their opinions on relevant international problems. Let's now move on to Ukraine. Kiev neo-Nazi regime continues to terrorize and attack the civilian population of our country. Over the past week, the artillery shelling and UAVs injured 104 people, killing 21, injuring 83, including 6 minors. Let us just list a couple of facts that everyone should know in the international community. The Belgorod region, October 8th, Banderites shelled using the BM-21 Grad the Maslova prison settlement. They focused on a physical fitness and wellness center, killing 3, including a 25-year-old teacher of the local school. They also injured 12. And on the same day, the settlement of Moshona, Ukro-Nazis injured 3 people, including a child. October 9th, the Novotavoljhanka settlements and the Blanka-Surkova road, an 8-year-old girl was injured. A truck driver was injured. October 10th, the Graivoron settlement, a UAV injured a married couple. October 10th to 11th, FPV drones attacked Atradne and Maximovka, the Yasnozori-Bochkovka road, injuring 4 civilians. October 12th, UAVs attacked a commercial object on the Rokitno-Belgorod road, injuring 4 people. The town of Shebekina, a UAV detonated close to a residential building, injuring 2 10-year-old boys. October 11th to 12th, a drone attacked the Porytarsky settlement, killing 1 civilian and injuring 2. October 13th, a UAV attacked the Dogorosh settlement and the Bochkovka settlement, killing 1 and injuring a driver of a combine harvester operating in the field. The Bryansk region, October 8th, UAVs shelled using mortars the settlement of Hinel, injuring 1 female civilian. The DPR, October 11th, the Ukrainian UAV attacked the town of Gorlovka, a passenger bus, injuring 7, including 2 teenagers. October 12th, the hostile drone attacked 1 passenger, injuring 6, including a teenager born in 2010. They also damaged civilian infrastructure, including kindergarten, residential, and administrative buildings. October 13th, the settlements of Lozovoy and Gorlovka. A UAV dropped ammunition, injuring 2 and killing 1. The Kursk region, October 11th, a Ukrainian drone attacked a civilian car on the Rizk-Durovo road, injuring a married couple. On the same day, the settlement of Burikovka and the settlement of Nizhny Makovo, UAVs attacked a truck and a moving motorcycle, killing 2 men. October 11th to 12th. This year, the Belovsky district, UAVs injured 4 civilians, including a 15-year-old boy. October 12th this year, on the Komutovka-Kapinovka road, and a part of the road between Lomakino and Akimovka, UAVs attacked two passenger cars, killing one 40-year-old woman and injuring a 70-year-old woman and 51-year-old man. Settlement of Giri. One man was injured, one person was injured. The Kherson region, October 9th, UAVs shelled Gole Pristin in Zburivka, killing two people. October 13th, Gole Pristin. The enemy attacked a 49-year-old woman. The settlement of Bakhteri. A mine was dropped, severely injuring a 51-year-old woman. The settlement of Novaya Mayachka. A UAV attacked a grocery store, injuring two people. October 14th. UAVs attacked Novozburivka, killing an 80-year-old woman. Close to the settlement of Chernyanka, FPV Ron injured a truck driver. The FU still controls territories of the region. There are cases of looting that have become more frequent. Militants have stolen property from private households and set the houses on fire to cover their tracks. The Kherson residents are at the real risk of physical violence from neo-Nazi occupiers. They will be punished for their crimes. Russian courts continue to render sentences to Ukrainian neo-Nazis for their crimes in the Kursk region against civilians and Russian servicemen. Lengthy sentences were given to captives, namely Oleg Artyuk, 26-year-old, in prison, Alexander Mokrenko, 17 years in prison, Vitaly Viletsky, Yaroslav Shurov, 16 years in prison, Taras Milan, Vladimir Yareshenko, Dmitry Semenchuk, Bogdan Bodak, Artyom Kovalchuk, 15 years in prison, respectively. Alexander Babich, 14.5 years in prison. For deliberate killings of civilians in March 2022 in the city of Mariupol, the Azov Regiment fighters Anatoly Kamyshenko and Yevgeny Vintovkin were given 22 years in prison by the court. 12 years in prison were given to mercenary from Armenia, Armen Belan, that was detained in October 2024. To 14 and 16 years old in prison in absentia, respectively, were given to legionnaires from Great Britain, Argentina, William Page and Sebastian Caceres. They were both declared internationally wanted. The Kiev regime does not conceal its preparation for new terrorist acts against Russia to escalate the conflict. October 8th, Zelensky released a video address said that he has approved plans of some special operations against of the security service of Ukraine against our country. They were prepared, taking into account a potential delivery to the AFU of American missiles, long-range missiles, Tomahawk. This was discussed on October 11th and 12th between President of the U.S., Donald Trump, and Zelensky. Their press services reported on this. A detailed opinion of our country was outlined in the Kommersant newspaper by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. This interview is going to be published shortly. I think that today, in the afternoon, you will see the first part of the interview, and tomorrow the full version will be available. This interview will feature approaches towards the escalation of the conflict on the part of Zelensky and everyone who's behind him, and the delivery and supplies of the relevant weaponry. Let me note that comprehensive responses to the answers in this context will be available shortly. I can reiterate that the attempts to use the threat of terror and to speak arrogantly to Russia from a position of strength is unacceptable for Russia. October 13th, U.S. was visited by high-ranking Ukrainian emissaries. They wanted to lobby the interests of Kiev regime. Head of the Office of the President, Andrei Yermak, Prime Minister Yulia Sverdenko, and Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rustem Umerov. They want to finalize the mega deal to sell to the U.S. To purchase to purchase weaponry to the tune of $90 billion and to sign with Washington an agreement to supply to the U.S. Ukraine-produced drones to the tune of $10 billion. The agenda also features the strike capabilities of the AFU, strengthening of national energy, and harsher anti-Russia sanctions. The documents will be ready for signing on October 17th during the meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the White House. Contributions also made by European high-ranking officials. October 13th, Kaja Kallas visited Kiev. She confirmed the readiness of Brussels to help Ukraine militarily and financially. She said that Ukrainians are encouraging the whole world through their bravery, and they need support. We will come back to that later. To substantiate her words, she positively responded to the journalist's question about the potential supplies of Tomahawk missiles. And I quote her. Kallas said that we welcome all tools that make Ukraine more powerful and weaken Russia. October 15th, today, NATO headquarters, co-chaired by 31st session of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, the Ramstein Group, is taking place. This co-chaired by Great Britain and Germany. Minister of Defense Denis Shmyhal is going to present to its participants updated mobilization data in Ukraine and discuss questions on further support of AFU in terms of additional air defense systems and also the use of precision-guided weapons to strike inland of Russia inland. There is no political will towards peace in the West, and we see testaments of that. The Kiev regime does not have any will towards peace whatsoever. They are dragging out the conflict. They pursue their short-term interests. They try to not permit the collapse of their world order. They want to inflict maximum damage to our country, and they're not thinking about consequences for them as well. October 10th, one of the British newspapers said or assumed that ex-Prime Minister of Great Britain Boris Johnson that prohibited the Kiev regime in early April 2022 to continue the talks with Russia. So there are indications of direct material gain in the statements of Boris Johnson. According to this newspaper, the ex-Prime Minister could get £1 million from businessman Christopher Harborne. He's the largest auctioneer, stakeholder of the N18G defense company that supplies Ukraine with UAVs and robotics. Boris Johnson in September 2023 brought Christopher Harborne to Kiev using his private jet to visit a closed-door meeting in the Military and Technical Center. Frankly, the scenario proposed by the British journalists looks legit. Multi-billion contracts continue to be signed with Western military-industrial complex, and the Kiev, Boris Johnson and other leaders gain their advantage through that. Of course, everyone wants to hear his comments because it is a very serious accusation. One should, of course, comment on one's own movements. Was Christopher Harborne really on board the aircraft that flew to Kiev? Kaja Kallas, let me remind you, said that Ukrainians encourage the whole world. So now on the mobilization of Ukraine, in Ukraine, the number of deserters continues to grow. In September, it amounted to over 19,000 people. The total number in 2025 amounted to 162,000 people, and since the beginning of the special military operation, it has amounted to 285,000 people. They deserted the AFU. The Kiev regime is inclined to distort the statistics, and this number might be even higher. We're now talking about the official data only. The observers evaluate it to be 500,000 people. They note that Kiev is not able to reverse the trend of desertion. Neither the barrier troops nor tightening penalties for unauthorized absence can help. On the daily basis, about 105,000 young Ukrainians, 18 to 22 years old, abandon Ukraine daily. That's a perfect encouragement of Ukrainians for Kaya Kalas. A few commanders have recently been talking about the reduction of draft age, mobilization age, until 23 years old. And they have also been talking about the creation of a parallel army comprising 16, 18-year-old boys, so that one can have a ready-to-fight army in 5 years. No one wants to voluntarily die for the Kiev junta, but Zelensky does everything to bleed the country dry and to deprive the future generations of everything in the coming decades, so that there is nothing left of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the West continues to control the Ukrainian media narrative to downplay the significant losses of the AFU on the front line and to continue the war until the last Ukrainian. We have learned about new contributions of the EU to the Ukrainian independent journalism. It has received 6.6 million euros. The grants will be allocated to support the frontline media, to educate investigative journalists, and to create 15 regional media hubs to combat misinformation. Now, as for the disinformation, where's the source of it? Of course, that's the Institute of the National Memory of the Ukrainian people. We have repeatedly commented the law on the principles of state policy of national memory of the Ukrainian people, according to which any attempts to challenge the fabrications of national radicals regarding Ukrainian resistance to foreign dominations in the 20th century and the fight against the Russian aggression since 2014 is now qualified as propagation of unreliable information about the Ukrainian history and is equal to anti-Ukrainian propaganda. Repressive functions has been given to the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory. October 7th, a list was published of persons and events that contain the symbols of the Russian imperial politics. They cover the historical period up until 1917. The black list of persons glorifying the Russian Empire includes writers like Ivan Turgenev, Konstantin Aksakov, poets, of course, like Alexander Pushkin, Mikhail Lermontov, Vasily Zhukovsky, composers, Mikhail Glinka, Modest Mussorgsky, artists, Vasily Surikov, and others, and even seafarers, Simeon Dezhnov and Fedey Bellingsgausen. Moreover, the list includes Petr Bagration, a military commander, and surprisingly, Decembrists are also on that list. We will come back to that, but there's also a white list of persons and events that are acceptable. They can exist in Ukraine. This list includes Nikolai Gogol, Maxim Leskov, Vladimir Korolenko, Anton Chekhov, Alexander Kuprin, artists Ilya Repin, Karl Brulov, Ivan Kramskoy, Ivan Ivazovsky, Anna and Decembrists as well. How can that be possible? You might ask. Well, there are good and bad Decembrists, as they think, in Ukraine. For example, Rylev is a good Decembrist, and the rest is bad. Apart from Rylev, everyone else has been blacklisted. The whitelist also includes founder of scientific pedagogy Konstantin Uchinski's, scientist Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, and others.
I quote, they did not propagate the imperial policy and supported the ideas of freedom and humanism. According to this logic, Pushkin did not support these ideas. I'd like to specify here whether all the participants of this get-together titled the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory needs an appointment with a psychiatrist or not. Besides all of this mentioned above, the so-called experts from this institution even got to Ivan Sasanin. He bothered them. The Borodino battle and Ivan Sasanin are recognized as the myths of the propaganda, the Russian propaganda. They are concerned that the battle not far from Moscow, where French aggressors were defeated, when they were participated by Zumsky regiments. They cannot tolerate the idea that ordinary Russian people could live their lives for the Tsar and the motherland. They want to erase from the public space all the names of places to do with Borodino and this heroic deed of Ivan Sasanin. These lists will be added with, I quote, new data about people and events during the Moscow Tsar era, Russian Empire, Russian state, the USSR, modern Russian Federation. All these people mentioned here are figures of our country before 1917. How can they become a part of the process of decommunization that started after 1917? Probably this fact is forgotten, or their mental state is okay with that. With the lack of these hints, we see strange activism and Russification. In October, they said that Nikolaev renamed the streets of those historical figures and cultural figures who were not banned. They overdid the plan. The Kiev regime used the ideology and practice of Ukrainian national radicals and turned into a neo-Nazi dictatorship. This is the only way to preserve their dominance. All these facts and other facts confirm the relevance of to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine and remove threats coming from its territory. As our leadership said, all of them will be achieved. One more announcement on October 17th, the press center of the Russian MFA will hold a briefing of Ambassador-at-Large Rodion Miroshnik dedicated to the crimes of the Kiev regime against civilians for July-September. During this period, we see the growing number of strikes against civil infrastructure, a high number of casualties among civilians. During the briefing, new statistic data, testimonies will be presented. They are collected based of the data from victims and witnesses. They are solid evidence of the criminal nature of the Kiev regime. Now about the situation in Moldova. The current authorities in Chisinau, the Chisinau regime continues pursuing anti-Russian policy destructive for the country. On October 11th, President of the Republic, Maya Sandu, accused Russia in, as she said, hybrid attack on Moldovan democracy. You see, the Romanian citizen understands better what's going on with democracy in Moldova. As per usual, no details or facts were given. They are only groundless slogans. At the same time, in Moldova itself does what the political scientists and experts openly call a hybrid attack on principles of freedom and democracy and abandons the sovereignty of the country. Officials in Chisinau continue to close down the information resources that are unwanted to the authority. On October 7th, the Service for Information Security of Moldova, without explanations and a ruling and a court decision, blocked the independent website Gagos News. It is known for publishing criticism and various opinions about the current regime. And from Sandu's point of view, no pluralism of opinions is needed. Chisinau does not hide their aspiration to become part of NATO security system. On October the 6th, Chisinau saw the beginning of the work of the consultative group within the intergovernmental agreement between Moldova and Germany, signed in May. Under the agreement, the German advisors in the 4 years will have to help implement projects to upgrade military sector of the Republic. The media publish information that on the territory of the Republic there is uncontrolled spread of firearms. There's inflow of Ukrainian soldiers deserted from Ukrainian army to Moldova, as well as mercenaries who leave the zone of hostilities in Ukraine. This does not mean more security and stability for people in Moldova. We are not talking about democracy and so on here. On October the 8th, the government of Moldova endorsed the new military strategy for 2025-2035. It directly enshrines that, I quote, the continuation of military aggression of the Russian Federation in Ukraine with possible expansion to the Republic of Moldova is the most serious security crisis in Europe over the last decades, and a possible expansion of territories. We could probably agree with the second part, but they should write who is to blame for that. And the expansion of territories occupied by Russia is a serious direct threat to security and statehood of the Republic of Moldova. The key elements of these documents were plans to increase defense expenditures to 1% of the GDP. However, the resources to implement such a policy are not available for Chisinau. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development decreased the forecast of the GDP growth Moldova this year from 1.8% to 1.5%. Over the first 6 months this year, GDP in Moldova decreased to 0.1%, while Moldovan leadership rants about the European future. A third of the population lives in poverty. The economy of the country under the current leadership makes not progress and even goes down the drain, but people in Moldova understand that the so-called European integrational project and convergence with NATO imposed to them strips the country from dignified future and turns their territory impunity and poverty. According to the publications in the media, the Moldovan society sees the feeling of desperation and total mistrust to the authorities. This is a natural outcome of the current policy. Sergei Lavrov commented on the situation in the Middle East during the special session with a journalist from that region. We would also like to say that we note with good feeling that in the recent days the situation in Gaza saw positive developments. The needed steps were taken. Tzahal retreated their forces to the agreed lines. Hamas returned all living Israeli hostages. But almost 2,000 Palestinian prisoners were released. We hope that with the mediation of Egypt, Qatar, the US, Turkey, the agreements will be compliant with. In particular, it concerns the ensuring of unobstructed supplies of humanitarian aid, the creation of all the necessary conditions to return the displaced persons, the building of the civil infrastructure. Russia, since the very beginning of the crisis in Gaza, actively and consistently promoted the cessation of hostilities and the start of the political and diplomatic efforts to settle the crisis. We sponsored a number of resolutions. All of them were blocked, which made it impossible to work out a consolidated response of the Council. However, we are determined, together with partners, to contribute to the collective effort in the region aimed at long-lasting stabilization of the situation in the zone of the Palestinian and Israeli conflict and in the Middle East